How will China tackle its challenges in the next 5 years? Its Communist Party's top leadership is meeting to draft a plan. From domestic issues to its trade war with the United States, Beijing has so much to deal with. But does it have a clear vision? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the programme. I'm Bernard Smith. China's top leaders are meeting for an important conference that will give a glimpse into the priorities of the world's second largest economy. The Forth Plenum of the Communist Party will outline a series of policies for the next 5 years. Beijing has been making efforts to increase consumer spending and attract foreign investors to drive growth, all the while dealing with an escalating trade war with its biggest export market, the United States. President Xi Jinping is also expected to replace some of the party's top leaders. So what will drive China for the next 5 years? And what's behind the changes among the top leadership? We'll put that to our guests in a moment, but first this report from Ferdia Ka.
China's Communist Party is holding one of its most important political gatherings, the Forth Plenum of the 20th Central Committee. 370 party members are meeting in the last major session before finalising its next 5-year plan in March, the blueprint for everything from economic policy to national security. The meeting, which runs until Thursday, comes shortly after several senior party figures were expelled. But top of the agenda will be addressing slowing growth in the Chinese economy. Its property sector is in crisis. Youth unemployment has hit record highs. Beijing is looking to increase domestic consumption and advanced technology to stimulate its economy. Analysts expect strong investment in AI, semiconductors, clean energy, and a focus on self-reliance.
It's less about growth, but more about the internal transformation in terms of treating high-tech as even more of a short-term and a long-term priority. That means resources will be allocated more to the high-tech sector, but they don't generate GDP and jobs in the short term.
A trade war with the United States has forced China to reshape its export-heavy economy. Washington has restricted China's access to advanced chips, pressured allies to cut tech ties, and threatened to increase tariffs by 100% in November. Beijing has responded with its own export controls, including on rare earth minerals critical to the global tech industry.
Working on that for quite a while.
US President Donald Trump is expected to meet China's leader Xi Jinping at a summit in South Korea in the coming weeks to discuss a trade deal.
They will threaten us with rare earths. I don't think they're threatening us too much right now. But they could do that, but I threaten them with something I think is much more powerful, and that's tariff. So I think we're going to end up having a fantastic deal with China. It's going to be a great trade deal. It's going to be fantastic for both countries, and it's going to be fantastic for the entire world.
Any reshuffling of senior posts in the coming months will be closely watched. Ahead of the plenum, President Xi removed 9 generals, many members of the Central Committee, in an apparent anti-corruption drive. Among the most senior, He Weidong was China's second highest-ranking general. The move has been seen by analysts as a further consolidation of power by President Xi.
In this sense, Xi Jinping continuing to basically pick people he wants for top positions and remove them at will. That suggests that there's very little opposition to what he wants within the party.
With economic headwinds, a deepening rivalry with the United States, and political rumblings at home, the Central Committee will look to carefully navigate China's challenges over the next 5 years. Ferdia Ka, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
All right, let's bring in our guests. In Beijing, we have Einar Tangen, a senior fellow at the Centre for International Governance Innovation. In Washington, D.C., Shirley Ziyu, a senior fellow at the London School of Economics. And in Taipei, Wen-Ti, a non-resident fellow with the Atlantic Council's Global China Hub. A warm welcome to you all. Einar, I'll begin with you, an easy one, really. I mean, what are you looking for to come out of this plenum? What have you got your eye on?
Well, I mean, it's really we're not going to get a lot of information out of it. It's just going to be mostly hints. They're setting the plan for the 2026, 2030 area. What's notable is that they've moved up. This is generally something that would be done at the fifth plenum. They're doing it at the fourth plenum. So what I'm really taking away from this is the signals that they're sending that during this time of uncertainty, they're more certain that they have to be proactive and to plan ahead, especially given the what's happening with the United States and the trade war.
All right, Shirley, what have you got your eye on? That suggestion that they've got to be more proactive about the economy. What else will pique your interest?
Well, actually, in terms of the timing, I think the reason that the 15th five-year plan between 2026 to 2030 is discussed at the fourth plenum instead of the fifth is actually because the third plenum was delayed. Because look at it, the 15th plenum is going to start at the beginning of 2026, which is just a couple months away. So this is a imminent timing to craft the details guiding China for the next 5 years. And I think within it, the new quality productive forces, or you may call it new innovative forces, will be the key driver. And if we reflect on the 13th five-year plan in 2015, Made in China 2025 was its primary agenda. And a decade later, we could see that in terms of advanced manufacturing, robotics, technologies, EVs, solar panels, shipbuilding, and the lithium batteries, et cetera, have all taken over 50% of the global market share. So we may say that Made in China 2025 was an extremely well-executed strategy. And looking into the next decade, the new innovative forces will drive for something that's fundamentally different. It's going to look at making more scientific and technological fundamental breakthroughs, building global infrastructure, particularly for the AI economy, and also talent cultivation.
All right, and Wen-Ti, what do you see? What have you got your eye on? What will you be watching for, the hints coming out of this plenum?
Yes, so I think the personnel arrangement is the part that most captured my attention for sure. It's Forth Plenum, just like any plenum, is usually time for major personnel reshuffling. And we know from last week that Beijing formally removed 9 four-star generals from the Central Committee and from the party in general as part of the broader President Xi's anti-corruption drive. So the fact that they got removed is interesting at such a high level. One of the two, for example, He Weidong is vice chairman of the Central Military Commission. The commission's chairman, which is, of course, Xi Jinping. So the guy who got removed is basically number 3 for the military. So I think that's interesting to have that level of changes at a very high level. And the question then is who is going to replace him? Who is going to get appointed to take over the slots that they just empty out for? And judging from that, it's going to tell us a hint or two about what's the new policy directions that Beijing has in mind, what kind of talent or experience they want to replenish and strengthen for their new leadership after this round of cleaning.
OK, so we'll come back to who's in and who's out and who's up and who's down a little bit later on. But first of all, Einar, Shirley was touching on the economics and you mentioned it as well. A suggestion as well, Xi is likely to double down on boosting manufacturing with regards to high tech, with regards to boosting the manufacturing in those sectors. He sees that, Xi Jinping, as essential. Why is that?
Well, I mean, China ranks about 100 in terms of 195 countries and resources per person. It has to bring in resources, and it has a lot of its rise has been due to the fact that it adds value to those and then is able to export them. This is not a model that China is abandoning, although it's going to be stressing internal consumption more than just plain growing external trade. It's very important. And the way that China is going at this isn't just, oh, wouldn't it be nice? China has been using AI, robotics, everything, the digital economy to improve the bottom line in terms of its manufacturing. If you look at logistics, as I said, robotics, everything that goes into supply chain management, getting things from A to B, producing them. These are all being improved, and China continues to lead in those areas, especially when it comes to cost and value. And we've seen this with NEVs, etc. So yes, economics are there, but what Shirley talked about, these new productive forces, you're going to be hearing a lot about that. It's one of those phrases they always use, and people have to get used to it and understand what it means. It's really about innovation, using the digital economy, doubling down on it, making sure that they're increasing the amount of money that people are making. Now, remember, China, over the last 9 months, has increased disposable income. That means the income you get to keep after everything else by 5.4%. You look at the U.S., it's a fraction of that. So you have this situation where China is always concentrating on what's coming out and what's going in and how to make it more efficient.
All right. Well, surely the Chinese may have more disposable income, but the statistics suggest that consumer demand remains a bit suppressed. How might this 5-year plan, as Einar was hinting at, stimulate consumption, or will they just stick with this familiar investment-export mix?
Chinese leadership circle has been repeatedly talking about boosting consumer demand for the past couple of years, but China has primarily resorted to subsidies and stimulus in order to boost the consumption. And as we see, the result of it is that China has been teetering on the margins of a deflationary environment for the past 3 years or so. So it's clear that subsidies are temporary reliefs. They are not sustainable remedies to boost the consumption. In order to boost some consumption, structural changes and reforms are needed, particularly in terms of building social safety nets and social welfare systems. And I think in the 15th five-year plan, China may incorporate further infrastructure plans to build up the social safety net, not only for the newborns, but for the working group and also for the aged population. And I think that is a sustainable remedy in order for China to avert the 3 lost decades that Japan had experienced post the bubble burst.
But surely that would be a different move then for China, wouldn't it, to increase, to widen the social safety net? It's not something it's done concentrated policy-wise on before, is it?
China has not come to this point yet. Remember, China has been the world's fastest growing economy for pretty much the past 4 decades. And when you are on the economic fast train, you are thinking about a lot of productive sectors of the economy that were working. FDIs were coming in, Chinese exports were booming, and the Chinese innovation economy has been booming for pretty much the past decade and a half or so. So now, as the other economic engines are slowing down, of course, China needs to more sustainably think about strategies to structurally boost China's sustainable consumer-led economy.
And Wen-Ti, with that stagnant growth in China, do you see the continued policy to continue pushing for exports, or is there a risk for China that while other countries may throw up barriers similar to the US has done with increased tariffs?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, right? Judging from what document, what's going to be in the text of the final document that came out. But suffice to say that I think China has been trying to become more cautious over time in terms of how it perceives the international market environment. Trump, US-China tariff war and trade war in general is, of course, one big part of it. But China has been talking about this concept of double circulation for a few years by now anyway. And the concept is that generally, for China's economy to maintain vitality, it needs to look at both the greater international cycle of economy as well as more domestic cycle. And the general trend is that given there's an increasingly heightened perception of risk factors in the international market, China is trying to take care of the part of the pie that it can better have agency over and control over. And that is the domestic part of it. So I'll expect to see more focus on that domestic circulation or domestic economy going forward as well, and we'll see in a few days.
And Einar, will whatever comes out of this plenum give us any hints as to how at any position China might take at the upcoming APEC summit and how and that Trump's expected meeting with Xi Jinping at that meeting?
Expected. We'll have to see. Let me correct one thing. China is doing pretty well. They just released numbers. It's 5.4% growth. I don't think that's really slowing down. It's doing very well. It's certainly at or above the average that has been for this last few years of the 2025 plan. So right now they're doing pretty well. But I agree, it's all about confidence. And this point about having the safety net is very important. But China has been motoring along on that. A lot of it has been in the rural areas more recently. But when that reaches parity with the urban areas, I expect them to basically march forward together. That gives people confidence to spend because they don't have to worry so much about saving money for their old age, retirement, emergencies. But there's also the overall confidence. And that has, in my opinion, been increasing as of late. You saw the latest polls in terms of what people think of their government, extremely high, leading the world of any kind of advanced economy. So things are going along pretty well for China versus the United States, which is not doing so well. So when things, in terms of your question, what happens in Korea, if anything, assuming Trump can be controlled, and doesn't want to do a Zelensky on Xi Jinping, I think it'll be very tight. I don't think there's going to be any kind of big breakthrough. I think China has been slow playing the United States, anticipating that, we've already seen 10 months and we're already tired. We have another 3 years plus to go of Donald Trump. This is not the time to make a deal because we all know that as soon as you conclude one deal with Donald Trump, he will be back the next day demanding more. So China has studied him. They're very, very strategic in the way they're handling him. And they have a lot of cards, more cards than Donald Trump at the moment.
And Shirley, what will you be looking for out of this plenum that might give an indication that's what's going to come out of the Trump-Xi meeting?
I think 3 scenarios may emerge at the Trump-Xi meeting next Wednesday in South Korea. The first scenario is a narrowly focused trade truce with a possible tariff deadline and a set tariff threshold, leaving time and space to negotiate all the other more systemic issues from export controls, technological restrictions, Taiwan, Russia, rare earth, etc. The second scenario is U.S. and China walk away with a comprehensive trade pact, including tariff regimes, investment scheme. China has talked about potentially investing a large, enormous amount of FDI in the United States, and including all the other issues that are more systemic in nature. And the third scenario is that U.S. and China walk away with absolutely no agreements, sending the U.S.-China bilateral relations into an abyss and the global economy in severe disruptions. And I personally think the first scenario, a narrowly focused trade truce, with leaving all the other more systemic issues for later, is you may call it a phase 1 of the U.S.-China trade deal. It's probably the most likely scenario, and that style goes very much in line with President Trump's resolution of the peace negotiations in Gaza as well, solving the most immediate and most achievable issues first, leaving all the other issues for later negotiations.
And Wen-Ti, what will you be looking at coming out of this plenum that might give a hint as to how that Trump-Xi meeting will go? I know, as Shirley suggests, you may get this broader agreement while much more complicated issues are pushed further down the line.
Yeah, so that seems to be a 2-part question. The plenum itself, I expect it to do what usually it's supposed to do, which is build consensus and strengthen confidence for the party as a whole. And for that to boost both internal cohesion and national pride, that's going to be important for the planet itself. I expect that for the next part of the equation, that is the expected Xi-Trump summit to happen on Silent APEC. For that, I think it's not quite the best occasion for going into the details of policy issues. because these are, after all, meeting between the two most important leaders in the world. So it'll be more political symbolism more than policy details. What I expect to see them to be talking about will be highlighting each other's red lines, what are their fundamental interests, and whether the two sides fundamentally see each other as more friends or more as competitors. And in addition to that, of course, to have that kind of high-level meeting, you can't walk away without giving some kind of good gesture, symbol, some kind of souvenir, if you will, for the other side to take away from. And so while I think comprehensive agreement that's resolved the problem on tariff or rare earth elements is not that likely, what you might have is some kind of partial arrangement that buy each other time for further negotiation. So, for example, you might see President Trump, for example, impose on November 1st deadline for increasing tariff for China. Perhaps we will see additional 3 months or additional 4 or 5 months for further negotiation. Similarly, perhaps you can see China's side agreeing to some kind of partial and temporary exemption for the U.S. side when it comes to rare earth element management, and then perhaps to just buy time for each other to work it out and resolve negotiate details in future rounds of talks.
I know it seems like Trump might be looking for a deal. He's called 100% tariffs unsustainable. Does China have more leverage in this? You hinted at it earlier on, because it can restrict rare earths and access to critical minerals.
Well, it's not only that. I mean, China has a lot of cards out there. I mean, you saw the UNDP report last week where they said that, by 2030, China will be 45% of the world's manufacturing and the U.S. 11%. It's not going in the direction that Donald Trump wanted. And quite frankly, it's not going to be, I agree with Shirley and my other cohort that there's going to be no overall agreement. What you're going to have is, some sort of kick the can down the road. Certainly, China is not going, under any circumstances, they're not a taco. They're not a, always chicken out kind of group. If they do something, it's very deliberate. And they've decided they're not going to allow countries to build military things that threaten threaten China with their rare earths. Doesn't make any sense. And they're in a very, very strong position on that. So they might ease up on licensing and making sure that, the car companies can continue and things like that. But it's going to be very, very tight and very, very small issues just to move it along the line.
But quickly, Einar, just to come back on that, China is still reliant on the US for some sophisticated technologies, isn't it? I mean, it restricted access of sales of equipment to the domestic aircraft manufacturer. It could do the same with Boeing parts. It does have cards.
Yeah, well, that's the irony there. Boeing will not be able to make the parts that they won't sell China without rare earths. And you should think about that. All
right. Shirley, to the who's in and who's out and who's up and down within the last 5 minutes of the show, what are we looking for in the purges of top personnel? Might he repopulate the Central Military Command, which has been depleted in recent purges? What are you looking for?
So what's not overtly stated in the agenda of the Forth Plenum is obviously the speculation of the personnel reshuffle, both in the military and in the administrative pillars. On the military front, yes, 9 senior military generals were purged over the weekend. So the actual number of senior military commanders who were purged would probably be much larger than what was announced. And so military ranks takes time to fill. Mr. C or the CMC, the Central Military Commission, does not have to fill every single role at this week's plenum, but military cohesion does take time to cultivate. And I think that will bear significant consequence to China's defense imperatives as it relates to Taiwan, the South China Sea, and the Western Pacific. But on the administrative front, there are also a number of senior roles that are waiting to be filled and to be replaced. And today, if you were a Central Committee member going to the Forth Plenum, you would naturally wonder who are going to fill these roles. Are they reformers? Are they hardliners? Are they transitory figures? Are they generational leaders? Are they just party preservers? So all of that will matter a lot to China's execution of the 15th five-year plan, China's domestic policy agenda, and its relationship with the United States.
And Wen-Ti, what do you think about what do those purges, military purges, signal?
Yes, so I think it probably means two things to me in terms of corruption and Taiwan issue. We know that of the 9 that got purged, the top 2 were both Miao and He Weidong were both basically they had relationship with Xi Jinping going back basically a quarter century, going way back to Fujian era when Xi Jinping was there, 90s and early 2000s. So corruption and integrity challenges inside the PLA must be sufficiently bad for Xi to feel the pressure to go ahead and make example of some of his own proteges, just to show that he is a very impartial leader and that he's serious about anti-corruption efforts inside the military. So I think that's number 1. And number 2, on Taiwan specific side, 8 of the 9 4-star generals that got purged formally last week have Taiwan-related military experience. They either work for the 31st Army in Fujian, or they work for the Nanjing military region, or the now what we call the Eastern Theater Command. All these are major operation centers that have Taiwan as a specialty. So the fact that they got purged at this juncture means that the need for Taiwan-related military and operational experience is probably not seen by the top leadership as a super valuable, vital, near-term necessity. So I think for those who are watching out for Taiwan Strait as a potential for conflict, this should be for now a cautiously optimistic sign that for China's side, there doesn't seem to be an immediate rush towards militarism just yet.
OK, well, that means we've all now got a better insight in what to watch out for in this plenum over the coming days. Thanks to our guests, to Einar Tangen, to Shirley ZU and to Wen-Ti Sung. And thank you too for watching. You can see the programme again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on X. We are at AJ Inside Story. From me, Bernard Smith, and the entire team here, bye for now.